The Overwatch League really might be coming to an end soon. That rumor has been spread around a lot over the years, and it's never come true, but this time there's actually some merit behind it. In its quarterly earnings press release, Activision Blizzard had this to say about the Overwatch League. As previously disclosed, our collaborative agreements for our professional esports leagues continue to face headwinds. During the second quarter, we amended certain terms of our collaborative agreements with team entities participating in the Overwatch League. According to the amended teams, following the conclusion of the current Overwatch League season, the teams will vote on an updated operating agreement. If the teams do not vote to continue under an updated operating agreement, a termination fee of $6 million will be payable to each participating entity. As of June 2023, a termination liability has not been accrued. Total revenues from the Overwatch League comprise less than 1% of our consolidated net revenues. The key takeaway from this blurb is that the Overwatch League teams and Blizzard will be negotiating a new operating agreement, and if the teams, or at least a majority of them, do not vote to continue under this new updated operating agreement, then it's over. Any team that does not accept is officially out of the league, and they're going to be rewarded $6 million. And that right there is the key, the $6 million part. Right now, Overwatch League is not profitable at all. At least on Blizzard's side, just thinking about them, the Overwatch League makes up less than 1% of their net revenue. And if they're not making anything, then obviously the teams themselves aren't going to be doing much better, as we've already found out the hard way that basically every team is operating at a loss, and so far this has not been a worthwhile investment in the slightest. There's been a lot of rising frustrations and anger over the last couple of years between owners and the league itself and Blizzard and what they're doing over there. So this is a golden opportunity for them to finally just get out of this big mess of a system. Since the beginning of 2019, the Overwatch League has consistently been on the decline. There's been absolutely no saving it, and it's very obvious that the goals that they had were way too ambitious, and now the owners and what they had to do to get into the league are completely regretting their choice, and they feel gypped of their resources and time. When you add in their growing frustrations with the lack of communication and how poorly they've been treated the last couple of years, it would only make sense for them to want to get out of here and never look back. Now, technically, these teams could, in theory, go into a new agreement and things can continue the way they have been, but realistically speaking, that just wouldn't make any sense. You really think these owners would just keep this league alive out of the goodness of their hearts and for the love of the sport? Hell no. It's all about the money, and if there's money to be had, if it means you get out of there, then they're probably gonna take it. I know there's been more than a couple of occasions throughout the years where we've thought we were done for, like the league was definitely gonna die just for it to persevere, but this time feels a lot different, just knowing what's in the cards here, what's on the table for these teams to potentially accept and or decline. You gotta think about this long term. You know that literally for years, this league has not been profitable in the slightest, mind you, and even with those waived fees that recently came out, it's just not enough. You know that long term, thinking about the future, the current model of the league just isn't meant for success. It hasn't been for a long time. It was way too overly ambitious. Franchises being a bad thing has long since been discussed since this league's inception, and right now it seems all of the doubters are more right than they ever have been before, and that maybe what we need for Overwatch esports to thrive is a more open ecosystem like we had before the league. Given the recent layoffs with Activision Blizzard and its esports staff for the Overwatch League, and all the layoffs we've seen over the years in general, and the budget constraints, and teams having to shrink constantly, and the lack of LAN events, it makes me think this might actually be for the best. As much as it breaks my heart to think about this league potentially dying, this just might be the thing that Overwatch esports needs to thrive and survive. Any OG fan can tell you that pre-Overwatch League was a pretty good time for the esports scene. There were so many different grassroots organizations and tournaments, and every single region felt like they were involved in some way or another. Korea had Apex and a bunch of other tournaments. NA had like this consistent stream of monthly and even weekly tournaments, and this applies to all of the other regions as well. There were a lot of different orgs and top players that were competing during this era. If we bring back that kind of thing again, a lot of the top players in the world could still be interested because this is the game they know and love and this is their career, but also you could bring in a lot of new talent. A lot of people maybe lost their interest in the game after Overwatch League came, may end up having their interest be re-sparked. Not to mention that an open ecosystem gives a lot of players that you may not actually see around in contenders or in Overwatch League a chance to shine. The path to pro sucks. It has for a very, very long time. There's just not nearly enough room for exposure, and there's not enough room in the Overwatch League for a lot of these players to show off their talents, especially here in the modern day where you have to cut back on budget. This gives a serious opportunity for a lot of people, whether you know them or not, to finally shine against some of this Overwatch League talent and prove themselves as some of the best players in the world. Think about what this could do for motivation and for some of these tier 2 players that have been grinding for years and years and years. Think about what it could do for people that maybe gave up on the game. And how about even streamers as well? There's endless possibilities for who could end up wanting to compete in these types of open ecosystem tournaments, and the possibilities also happen to be endless for the types of rosters you could see. That's what made Overwatch esports back in 2016, 2017 so awesome. Whether it was a team or an individual, there was always someone new coming onto the scene and grabbing your attention. There were endless storylines and endless players to support. The problem is the Overwatch League is like the only way to watch Overwatch esports these days because that's where all of the money and investment is. If we were to get rid of this, we wouldn't feel so binded to specific organizations, and to the league, and to the path to pro. The limitations would finally be off the table. In this kind of situation, we could see an inflation in interest finally. A bunch of Overwatch content creators have absolutely no desire to do anything with the Overwatch League, and they feel like it's a waste of time and that it's trash. So by doing this, you might just re-spark their interest to compete in Overwatch esports, to cover it, to stream events. It just seems like the best case scenario in a lot of ways. For a guy whose literal life revolves around the Overwatch League, I know I'm being very positive in this situation, but I think it's a must to do so. I won't lie to you, it really hurt to see that stuff come out earlier today. The Overwatch League dying would be super upsetting for me, as I have a very big emotional attachment to it. It has been the thing I have covered on my channel since the end of 2018. It's the thing that's given me the passion to create content and figure out what I want to do with my life. And for a lot of you watching, you share that same emotional attachment. We've been through so much with it. We've had a lot of wonderful moments. Seeing it go just like that after 6 years would be absolutely heartbreaking. I don't even know what's going to happen to my channel when the Overwatch League dies. It's a terrifying thought to think about the future, but at the end of the day, you've got to think of the positives. You got to think about what could happen. There's a lot of uncertainties, but there's also a lot of things that could go very right for the sake of Overwatch and its future. A lot of streamers and industry professionals alike all believe that this is the best for the health of professional Overwatch moving forward. Doa, former caster for the Overwatch League and legendary League of Legends caster, said that Overwatch esports would be better if OWL goes away, bringing back regional leagues with regional identity. Bring back those MLG-style tournament weekends, like I was saying earlier. Although, even with hopefulness and positivity aside, there's absolutely no guarantee that anything would be fixed if the Overwatch League goes away. There's no way of actually knowing if it's going to be profitable, if it can thrive and survive. The future is absurdly uncertain right now. This might be the only course of action, so we gotta ride the ship until the very end and see what happens. What's important to remember is that nothing is set in stone, and there's still time to carve a future. Whether Overwatch League lives or dies, it's important to remember that either way, Overwatch esports in general will still be around. So whatever you do, don't panic or go into full-on doomer mode just yet, because there just might be hope after all. As for me and what's going to happen with my channel and my future and my next chapter, I really couldn't tell ya. Overwatch esports and the league is my life. Would I like to maybe still try and cover some stuff after Overwatch League goes if it does? Yeah, of course, but I don't know how sustainable that'll be, and if there's even going to be interest in general if I make that pivot. I've been doing this full-time the last year or so. It is my source of income, so it would be very unfortunate if this is how it had to end, but it is what it is, right? There's not much I can do there. Maybe I'll have to make a different channel, maybe I'll move on from YouTube in general. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm just going to enjoy what time we might have left and continue to pump out content for you guys to enjoy. No matter what happens from here, I'm going to approach this just how I always have since the very beginning of my channel when I had a small following. I'm going to keep my head down and give it everything I've got. No matter what comes from here, thank you all so much for all of your support over the years, and I really hope that whatever comes next for Overwatch Esports is what it takes to help it survive.